Before 1914, women were oppressed and not given the liberty to work or serve in the military. However, when World War I began, women were given the liberty to work in the production of defensive products, such as military munitions, while their sons and husbands went to war. This was a huge stride for women in the workplace and even led to the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. This, in turn, led to women's prominent roles in World War II.
During World War II, women were vital to American aid on and off the battlefield. The norm in the 1940s was to marry young before the men would go off to war. And while the men were off at war, women would stay home and produce munitions like World War I. However, they had a more dominant role than World War I. Women were housekeepers, managed finances, fixed cars, worked in defensive plants, and would write letters to their family members fighting the war.
The biggest difference for women between World War I and World War II was the fact that Eisenhower believed, quote, "The contribution of women of America, whether on the farm or in the factory or in uniform, to D-Day was a sine qua non of the invasion effort." Women, for the first time in American history, could join the military and serve for their country.
Edith Nourse Rogers introduced a bill in May 1941 calling for the creation of an all-volunteer women's corps in the Army. Originally, people joked about the fact women wanted to serve in the Army. However, as time went on, the United States realized we needed to utilize our assets when fighting a two-front war against Japan and Germany. By 1943, 60,000 women had volunteered, and in July 1943, a new congressional bill transformed the WAAC, Women's Auxiliary Army Corps, to the new Women's Army Corps, WAC, giving Army women military status as opposed to the prior status as civilians working for the Army.
The women's courses paralleled those for Army men, as did their training circumstances. In 1942, WAACs began deploying overseas. As the war continued, most overseas assignments went to the European theater of operations, and over 8,300 served in England, France, Germany, and Italy. Nearly 350,000 American women served in uniform, both at home and abroad, volunteering for the newly formed Women's Army Auxiliary Corps.
This stride in women's rights was an essential part of American history in order to get women in the workplace and equal rights to men in the 1940s.